Hi, ParatonWeather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Wednesday morning, September 8th. We'll take a look at the tropics initially here, but then we'll also take a look at a severe weather threat that exists for the Mid-Atlantic region for late today, early tonight, as a strong cold front pushes across the Great Lakes and into the northeastern part of the nation. Once again, there will be a threat for isolated tornadoes in this potential severe weather outbreak. Again, we're talking probably 4 or 5 p.m. all the way up to 8, 9 p.m. along the I-95 corridor region in the Mid-Atlantic region. Heavy downpours also a threat, and given the well-saturated grounds, that proposes the possibility of some localized flash flooding conditions late today, early tonight. First, the tropical scene here. We still have some activity in the Atlantic Basin. We'll go over in a minute or two. Just kind of a big picture here as we move through the early part of the month of September. Again, from a climatological point of view, the Atlantic Basin tends to reach its peak by about the middle part of September. Now, the Atlantic Basin has been above normal, more activity than normal, but the Pacific Ocean, once again, just like last year, has been quieter than normal. And the Pacific Ocean is far more important on a global point of view than the Atlantic Basin. About 3/4 of all tropical cyclones actually form over the Pacific Ocean. And if you break down the Pacific Ocean between that area east of the date line and west of the date line, both segments have been quieter than normal. This is a table from Colorado State University that shows the accumulated cyclone energy. That is probably the best measure of tropical activity as compared with something like the number of named storms, because accumulated cyclone energy, or what's commonly referred to as ACE, it takes into account both the longevity of a storm and its magnitude. So again, it's a real good way to measure tropical activity. And take a look at what's going on right now. What you see in parentheses is actually the climatological average of the 30-year period from 1981 to 2010. And what you see to the left is the actual accumulated cyclone energy for this tropical season. So in the North Atlantic, certainly, no doubt about it, we're above normal compared to that 30-year period in terms of accumulated cyclone energy. But look at the Pacific Ocean. This is east of the date line, 180 degrees latitude, and here is west of the date line right here. Again, far below normal in the Pacific Ocean. And again, the Pacific Ocean is really, from a global point of view, far more important than the Atlantic Ocean, as most tropical cyclones actually form over the Pacific Ocean. So on a northern hemisphere basis, right here, we actually can see the accumulated cyclone energy is in fact below normal as of today, September 8th. So that's despite the fact that the Atlantic Basin is having a gangbuster type of year in terms of number of storms and in terms of ACE above normal. Pacific Ocean negates that, and even more so causes a below normal reading right now as we approach the midpoint of September throughout the northern hemisphere. Again, total accumulated cyclone energy in the northern hemisphere, 238.8 versus the climatological average of 281.1. Well, let's focus now on the Atlantic Basin itself. There are two systems to watch here over the next few days. First of all, a strong tropical wave now exists over the central Gulf of Mexico. It has a chance to actually reach tropical storm status over the next 24 to 48 hours or so, and it looks like it'll continue on a track to the northeast and then kind of get wrapped up in that cold frontal system that is pushing through the eastern states later today and tonight. It certainly can produce a swath of heavy rainfall right across the northern half of Florida, maybe southeastern part of Georgia, even South Carolina over the next couple of days as it continues to move to the north and east. Again, maybe a 50-50 chance that it strengthens enough to become a named tropical storm. This is Hurricane Larry. It's a strong hurricane right now, and it will remain out over the open waters of the Atlantic Ocean over the next couple of days. However, it will come awfully close to Bermuda. This little dot right here is the island of Bermuda, and it looks like Larry will stay to its east, but pretty close over in this region right here over the next couple of days. And then it'll turn to the north, and he's likely miss Nova Scotia, which is right here, but have an impact on Newfoundland, especially the eastern half here of Newfoundland in a few days. Again, this is Hurricane Larry, moves off to the east, but pretty close to Bermuda over the next couple of days, then ultimately sideswipes Newfoundland, and beyond that may move up to southern Greenland and actually result in some snowfall in the colder areas of southern and eastern Greenland later on this week going into the weekend. Meanwhile, in the Pacific Ocean, this is the central part of the Pacific Ocean, the Hawaiian Islands right here. Look at this. No tropical cyclones expected during the next 5 days or so. Certainly unusual for this time of the year. And again, this follows a quieter than normal last year in the Pacific region. And both of those summers, last summer and this summer, no doubt under the influence of La Nina conditions in the tropical part of the Pacific Ocean. Colder than normal temperatures in the tropical Pacific Ocean, suppressing activity in the Pacific Ocean, and actually in turn kind of allowing for an active year in the Atlantic Basin as well. So quite a different summer in terms of tropical activity in the Pacific Ocean versus the Atlantic Basin. Well, let's now focus in on that severe weather threat later today into early tonight in the Mid-Atlantic region, the Northeast U.S. Here we go again. We have a possibility of a severe weather outbreak that will include isolated tornadoes. That may include isolated tornadoes. This is the latest from the Storm Prediction Center of NOAA. We're based out in Norman, Oklahoma, right in severe weather country out there in Oklahoma. They have put a slight risk of severe weather all the way from the northern part of the Northeast U.S. To about the D.C. metro region, right in this area here. Certainly, the chance for strong to severe thunderstorm activity exists for later today, early tonight in places like D.C., Philadelphia, New York City, especially to the north and west of there. It looks like the best chance of severe weather will be along I-95 and to the north and west of I-95, to include possible heavy downpours. Hail is a possibility, and again, unfortunately, even isolated tornadoes. Now, given the already well-saturated grounds throughout the Mid-Atlantic region, any kind of heavy rainfall, even if it's just for a brief period of time, can result in some localized flash flooding conditions, especially to the north of the Mason-Dixon line. Well, let's take a look at the higher resolution NAM model from last night. This is a 3-kilometer resolution version of the NAM model, and I believe it has a little better handle on the broader synoptic scale computer forecast models. Let's take a look at the upper level field at 500 millibars, specifically what we call vorticity maxima. These are areas of spin or rotation in the upper part of the atmosphere. They can lead to upward motion down at the surface level. That's where you look for precipitation and thunderstorm development, low pressure development, and here is a very impressive wave of energy in the upper part of the atmosphere, now situated over the Great Lakes region, and that is the main culprit. It slowly moves to the south and east over the next 12 hours or so. Here we are now into the early evening hours, right here about 8 p.m. or so. Again, a strong wave of energy crossing the Great Lakes, moving into the northeastern part of the country. Ahead of it, winds will become gusty later on today. D.C., Philadelphia, New York City, from a south to southwest direction. That will pump in more moisture. It certainly has been relatively dry the last few days, but humidity will become an increasing factor later in the day, and that will kind of fuel the fire here for some instability in the lower part of the atmosphere, setting the stage for a possible severe weather event late in the day and early tonight. Here we now go through the overnight hours into the early part of Thursday, and there's that sharp trough here by early tomorrow morning over the eastern Great Lakes. It could be a residual, a lingering shower or thunderstorm let's say I-95 and points to the south and east of there early tomorrow morning. Then some cooler air moves in, maybe a little bit drier air in terms of overall humidity levels, and probably remains mostly cloudy, but could be some breaks of sun later on in the day, and then some clearing skies tomorrow night, and a really nice air mass follows this cold frontal passage for the Mid-Atlantic, for the northeastern part of the nation. Certainly by tomorrow night, especially on Friday and into Saturday, very comfortable conditions. Meanwhile, the west is dominated by high pressure ridging aloft, hot, dry weather for the most part over the Four Corners region over the next couple of days. Well, let's now focus on the surface forecast maps from the high resolution version of the NAM. These are kind of the radar echoes as depicted by the NAM model. Starting off today with not an all that impressive line right here. If you look on radar, which I haven't shown, not all that impressive, but that's before the upper level energy really slides into the picture here, into the northeastern part of the nation. That will certainly enhance things. Let's walk through this on an hourly basis. And here you go. By the middle of the day, let's say early afternoon, we already have an increasing coverage of radar echoes along that boundary zone here, the cold front moving in. Again, at this time, the support in the upper part of the atmosphere is catching up to the surface system. And here then we go through the afternoon, and you can see some strong echoes here, some representative of some strong thunderstorms. Kind of a broken line here in parts of the Mid-Atlantic region, but that tends to fill in later on in the day. And here we go by the early evening hours, some isolated, potentially strong to severe thunderstorms really can extend all the way down into D.C., especially on the northern side of D.C., up across the I-95 corridor region from Philly to New York City. And any one of these late day, early evening showers and storms can dump a quick amount of rainfall in a short period of time. And because of the very wet ground conditions, localized flash flooding is a concern, in addition to hail and, again, isolated tornadoes possibility with this cold frontal passage. Very impressive look here on the high resolution model for early tonight, going into the late evening hours actually across southeastern PA as that front moves through, and finally into the early morning hours it pretty much clears the coast. Still can be a lingering shower or a thunderstorm right along the coastline here early Thursday, then generally remaining mostly cloudy in the I-95 corridor on Thursday. Maybe some intervals of sun, but noticeably cooler air. It'll be drying out during the day, and then downright cool tomorrow night. A very pleasant conditions, comfortable day to end the week on Friday with plenty of sunshine, and going into the weekend, nice weather pattern will continue in this part of the nation as well. However, for late today and tonight, watch out, another severe thunderstorm threat for the Mid-Atlantic, the Northeast U.S. It could include some heavy downpours, maybe even some hail and isolated tornadoes as well. And as far as the tropics are concerned, the Atlantic Basin continues to be active over the next few days, with Hurricane Larry moving just to the east of Bermuda and then probably sideswiping or maybe even impacting the eastern part of Newfoundland on its way up into the North Atlantic over the next few days. That's it for now. For ParatonWeather.com, I'm meteorologist Paul Dorian.